All right, so welcome to our deep dive.
Hmm.
This time we're going to be tackling something I think we can all relate to, and that's building a fitness habit that actually lasts. Especially,
Mm.
with the new year coming up and all those like new year, new me resolutions.
Yeah.
They're about to be all over social media and stuff. You want to make this the year you actually stick with it, right? Like find a groove that doesn't fizzle out by, you know, February.
Consistency is key for sure. I think that's the holy grail. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I know our listeners out there are looking for creative ways to make fitness work, with their lives, not against it. So we've got some interesting sources to kind of help us out today. We've got a snippet from a YouTube video. Specifically, it's about the benefits of exercise for older men. And then we're diving into a few blog posts from this website called Nubian New Yorkers.
Newbie in New York is okay.
Yeah,
I like.
they're great. But first, let's talk about that New Year's resolution energy. That initial burst of motivation that somehow always seems to fade.
It's like we all get amnesia about how those resolutions usually go.
Right. And I think this YouTube video we've got kind of dives into that a bit. The channel's called Fitness Over 40, and they highlight this really relatable benefit of exercise,
Hmm.
especially for older men. It's about like maintaining the strength to do everyday things, like opening a stubborn pickle jar. What's interesting is they're not talking about like six-pack abs or running marathons. It's about functional strength.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart way to frame it because, like, let's be honest. Most of us aren't aiming to become professional athletes. It's those everyday activities, the independence that we want to hold on to.
Exactly. It's like a more grounded way to think about fitness, and maybe that makes it more sustainable in the long run.
I think so. Yeah, it takes the focus off, aesthetics and puts it on what truly matters, feeling capable and healthy in your daily life.
Now, speaking of feeling good, Nubian New Yorkers, they have this philosophy that I think really resonates with me. Their blog is all about black and brown, empowerment, men's health, and honestly appreciating attractive people.
Hey, keeping it real.
Right. But there's this quote from one of their posts that I think speaks to our New Year's resolution struggles. They say, two of the things people wish they had more time for are exercise and sleep.
So true. And yet they're often the first things to go when we're feeling stressed or busy.
It's so true. And that's what Nubian New Yorkers zeroes in on. They're like, look, fitness doesn't have to be another chore. You don't have to dread it. They're all about finding activities you actually enjoy doing and totally ditching that whole like gym intimidation factor. What do you think about that? Especially when it comes to sticking with a new routine.
I think it's key. That sense of dread is like a recipe for failure. When you actually enjoy what you're doing, it stops being about willpower and it becomes about wanting to move your body,
Yeah.
finding your own rhythm.
And that's what I love about how Nubian New Yorkers approaches this. They even have a whole list of ways to like sneak in more movement without having to hit the gym. Little things you can do in your daily life.
I'm all about those practical tips. What do they suggest?
Okay, so they talk about things like parking farther away from your destination, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, those
Yeah.
classic moves. But then they get a little more creative, like washing your car by hand.
Interesting. I never thought of that as exercise.
Right. But it totally is.
Yeah.
And they talk about how these little changes can actually make a real difference, especially when you add them to like a more structured workout routine.
And what's fascinating here is that it all ties into this concept called neat non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Neat. Okay, what's that all about?
So neat is basically all the energy you burn outside of like sleeping, eating, and intentional exercise. Things like walking around your house, fidgeting, even doing chores.
Oh, okay, so it's like the background movement of our lives.
Exactly. And the more neat we can incorporate into our day, the more calories we burn without even really trying. And Nubian New Yorkers seems to be tapping into that with all these like clever ways to move more.
And they even touch on the environmental aspect. Less driving, less water usage. It's like they're saying taking care of your body also means taking care of the planet.
Yeah, there's a nice holistic angle there. You're not just improving your own health, you're potentially making a positive impact on the world around you.
I like that. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Another Nubian New Yorkers post that caught my eye is all about getting in shape for spring. They call it the 8-week spring body challenge. Now, we've talked about ditching those unrealistic expectations, but this challenge actually starts with a pretty like chilled out piece of advice.
Oh, really? What is it?
They say just start by paying attention to your eating habits for a few days. Notice when you eat what you crave. If there are any patterns that might be working against your goals, it's about awareness before action.
That's such an important point because often we're running on autopilot when it comes to food. We don't even realize the choices we're making until we actually start paying attention.
Right. It's like step one is tuning into your body and what it's telling you. And from there, Nubian New Yorkers goes on to talk about the power of strength training.
Strength training is crucial, not just for building muscle and, getting that toned look,
Yeah.
but also for boosting your metabolism.
They actually explain this concept called progressive overload, which sounds way more intimidating than it actually is.
It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Think of it like adding an extra book to your backpack each week. You're gradually increasing the challenge, and your body adapts and gets stronger.
Ah, I get it. So you don't have to start by like bench pressing your own weight.
Exactly. You can start with bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, or light weights, and over time, as you get stronger, you increase the resistance.
Okay, so now for the fun part. Newbie New Yorkers gets a little playful and breaks down what men and women should focus on when it comes to strength training, especially with warmer weather on the horizon.
Oh, this should be interesting.
So for men, they suggest focusing on chest, arms, and abs for the hot weather months.
Classic beach body prep.
You know it.
Mhm.
And for women, they recommend prioritizing arms, abs, and legs.
It's kind of interesting how those suggestions play into traditional gender roles, isn't it?
For sure. But here's the thing. Newbie New Yorkers also makes a point of saying that the absolute best workout is the one you actually enjoy doing and will stick with. It's got to be something you look forward to, not dread.
Absolutely. Because if it feels like a chore, you're way less likely to keep it up. And remember, consistency is what we're after here.
And speaking of consistency, let's talk about another angle Newbie New Yorkers brings up, the social side of fitness. They have a whole post about how the gym can be a potential hotspot for finding a date. They even talk about the trend of people using dating apps while working out.
Wow, that's dedication to finding a partner who shares your fitness goals. But it does speak to how fitness communities can become these really supportive and social spaces.
Right, and they list all these reasons why a gym date can be fun and effective. From that post-workout endorphin glow to the bonding experience of encouraging each other's progress.
And that shared journey can be really powerful. Finding someone who supports your goals, celebrates your wins, and helps you stay accountable. It's like having a built-in cheerleader on your fitness journey.
I like that. Yeah. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about functional strength, finding joy in movement, sneaking in those neat activities, and even the social side of fitness. But I want to touch on one more thing before we move on. Newbie New Yorkers uses this really powerful analogy of a baby learning to walk. They say if a baby can learn to walk through sheer determination and a willingness to stumble along the way, what's stopping us from achieving our fitness goals?
It's such a great reminder that big changes happen through small, consistent steps. Just like a baby doesn't go from crawling to sprinting overnight, we don't have to transform our bodies in a matter of weeks.
Exactly. It's about those baby steps, those small wins that add up over time. And that's where I think Nubian New Yorkers really shines. They offer these practical, achievable ways to incorporate more movement into our lives without making it feel overwhelming or restrictive.
And they encourage us to find joy in the process, which, let's be honest, is what makes any new habit stick. So what do you say we take a moment to let all this sink in, and then we come back and unpack what this means for you and your New Year's fitness goals?
Sounds good to me. We'll be right back after a short break.
Okay.
Okay, we're back. And, as we were talking about, building a fitness habit that actually lasts, it struck me that Nubian New Yorkers really hit on something kind of crucial. It's not about achieving some perfect ideal. It's about progress,
Right?
right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. They have this vision in their head of what fitness should look like. And if they don't reach that, that ideal, they feel like they failed.
It's like setting themselves up for disappointment
Okay.
right from the start.
Exactly. And that's why I appreciate the newbie New Yorkers approach. They emphasize finding joy in the journey, celebrating those baby steps, and just embracing the fact that fitness is a lifelong pursuit. It's not a destination.
Yeah, and it's about finding what works for you. Not trying to force yourself into some, cookie cutter mold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to fitness. What works for one person might not work for another. And that's okay. The key is to explore different activities. Find what you enjoy and what fits into your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think back to that advice about just paying attention to your eating habits for a few days. It's such a simple step, but it could be so powerful. It's about building that self-awareness, that connection with your body.
Yeah, like becoming the observer of your own habits without judgment. Just noticing what you're doing, when you're doing it, and why you're doing it. And that awareness is the foundation for making any kind of lasting change.
And then from that foundation, you can start experimenting with different ways to move your body, to build strength, to find that joy in movement.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be complicated, you
Mhm.
know? Start with small changes, like those neat activities we talked about. Park a little farther away, take the stairs, walk, or bike instead of driving.
Yeah, it's about making those little choices throughout your day that add up to something bigger, over time. And as we head into the new year, I think that's a really encouraging message for our listener. You don't have to wait for January 1st to start making those changes.
You can start right now, today. Take one small step, no matter how insignificant it may seem. And tomorrow, take another step. And before you know it, you'll be well on your way to building a fitness habit that sticks.
So if you're thinking about making a New Year's resolution to get in shape, ditch those all or nothing mentalities, those unrealistic expectations, and those intimidating fitness fads.
Embrace the joy of movement, explore those activities that make you feel alive and energized, and celebrate every step you take toward a healthier, stronger, and more vibrant version of yourself.
Yeah, find what works for you. Find your joy, and most importantly, find your rhythm. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Join us at nubiannewyorkers.com.